I'm Chief from Marathon Mates. Do you struggle to maintain your running rituals when you are travelling? Worry no more, we've got you covered. On this episode, we will share our tips and tricks to help you maintain your running rituals when travelling for either work or pleasure. We will share with you what we do in our travels to ensure that we can maintain our training programs. We've got the experience and the knowledge to answer your questions, as we are the only podcast with 4 6-star world major marathon medalist co-hosts. And this is the Flying Runner podcast. Are you ready to run? Let's go!
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying Runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Flying Runner. I'm the Chief from the Marathon Mates, and this is episode 106. We know travelling for work or pleasure can stuff up your training programs. On tonight's episode, we will share with you our tips and tricks to help you maintain your routines when you're away from home, whether it's finding places and people to run with or finding the right foods to help you get through your runs. We've got you covered. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to my Marathon Mates co-host tonight, Tony, Tim, and of course the beautiful Tara. Guys, how have we been now that we're a week from Goldie, and how's the Sydney training going? I'm going to start with, no, I'm leaving Tony till last, purely because he's wearing the Queensland jersey, so I may not be nice to Tony tonight. Team Ellis, you guys.
Yeah, we're doing well. So GC recovery, I took all of last week off running, which was very weird for me not to actually have a week of running or doing anything. But I really wanted to make sure that my body had got rid of that lactic acid and stuff. We did do a walk the next day after Gold Coast, I think it was. I think it was just like an 8.5K walk. And we did parkrun on Saturday. So we did Kelvin Grove parkrun on Saturday. That was a good parkrun. Tim ran the first K with me, and then I'm like, go. You're going too fast for me. So I just toddled off on my own for the next 3 Ks, and then I walked the last one. And I started my Sydney training today, actually. So treadmill run, 5.5 Ks, I think it was, on the treadie, just starting to get back into it again. Yeah.
Awesome. You, Tim?
Yeah, I didn't do anything last week. I just took it easy. I think last week I was very fatigued after the run, and I think I've had I don't know if it's the start of, the middle of, or the end of this bug thing that's going around down here on the Gold Coast. So, a bit of a sore throat, bit of a cough, bit of a nasal thing, but none of it is actually anything. There's nothing in it, but it just is there, and it's just annoying. I've still got a bit of it. I think I'm on the tail end of it, but when I talk to people at work, they say they've had it for weeks. So who knows? But, didn't do any running last week. The body feels good. Did my run with Tara at parkrun on Saturday. First kilometre, as she said, I ran with her, and then it was probably 70% effort after that. But the body felt good. The legs felt good. I'm ready to go, I guess. Maybe this week, if it's not too cold in the mornings, I might get up and go for a run. I'll just see how I go. Tara's inspiring me to get out and do something. So I'm going to see what I can do this week.
And Tony, what about yourself?
I had a really good week, especially Wednesday night when those mighty Queensland Maroons just did everything that they could to demolish those overly confident and cocky Blues in the State of Origin. So that was good. In terms of running, didn't do much at all. I dropped the car down Saturday morning to get some new tires and ran home. So that was about 4.5K. Went for a walk with Sharon and Tim on Sunday, which was about 5K. So really not much at all. I was post-week Gold Coast, pre-week Sydney. So it was supposed to start today, but it was like 7 degrees. So I made the very brave decision last night to stay in bed for an extra half hour instead of getting up and going for a run. Tomorrow's tipped to be 8 degrees. So we'll see how we go. I've got everything ready to go for the morning if I decide to get up. But yeah, it's now heads in the game for Sydney. We've got a half marathon coming up in Townsville in a couple of weeks, to be honest. It's like 3 weeks away. So that should be a good charge in. So as long as I'm ready to go for that, that gives me probably 2 long runs before Sydney. So yeah, so that's my week.
Excellent.
How was your week, Lucia? How was your Thursday morning after seeing your team just do the unthinkable and not show up? Yeah.
Okay. For the listeners that didn't listen to last week's episode, first of all, shame on you, because you should be listening to all of our episodes. But secondly, I was kind of giving it to Tony for State of Origin, because obviously I'm a New South Wales person. Tony is unfortunately a Queenslander. And I may have mentioned a couple of times on last week's episode that New South Wales were going to win. Yeah, I got it wrong. So got it wrong. I think I went to sleep. I didn't even watch the whole game. I'm like, nah, bugger it. So yeah, I was feeling fine Thursday morning though. So
we did. We watched it all.
No,
absolutely. No. It was good. It was good entertainment.
It was, yeah, no. But ironically, so as I was flying back from Goldie last Monday, the Queensland team arrived at the same time into Sydney as I did. So I should have said, well, I should have wished them bad luck, but I didn't take the opportunity. So yeah, next time. But
so there was no like selfies with the winners or anything. You didn't take that opportunity to do some influencing there, Lucia. So
I suppose I deserve all of this, don't I? So I can't say anything. Can't say it. In terms of running, similar to you guys, I had a week off physically and mentally. I think I needed it after the disappointment of Goldie. I can walk properly now, which is great. Had my first run on Saturday with my run club, just a nice easy one. Then Sunday we had the Sydney Marathon Run Club. So I was on sweeper duties. So my pacing partner and I think we got to about 14 Ks because we had to be back at our starting point for 10 a.m. for the final celebrations of NAIDOC week, which was really, really good. And then I'm just going to put in a quick plug. So this Saturday, you think I'd remember the dates. This Saturday coming up, it's which is the day after the podcast drops, which is the 19th of July. To my run club, the Paddo Panthers, we're hosting the Sydney Marathon Run Club, so I will be there. So if any of our listeners are in Sydney and you feel like coming along, details you will find on the Flow Athletic website. And then on Sunday, I will be at the Sydney Muslim Run Club. They're hosting a Sydney Marathon Run Club. So in the Sydney Marathon are doing run clubs in different states. So check out the details on the website, guys. So that's just my little plug for the Sydney Marathon. Now, Tony, I'm going to pass it over to you for the next bit.
Oh, yes, of course. So we all have our designated jobs in the podcast, and Tara and Lucia's is usually just to look good on screen. So, but Tim does the preparation in terms of the run sheet and takes a lot of pride in that, and I take a little bit of pride in looking after much of our social media stuff as well as doing the editing for the podcast. And after last week's show, I think the message was sent Wednesday morning at like 4:30 in the morning. So Tara forgot to mention and asked to have some stuff included if it was possible. She was very polite about it, so I did tell her that, yeah, we should be able to do something. So for those people that tuned in last week, you would have heard those alarms just after we talked about the marathon. And I did mention to Tara at the time that I might have some fanfare, like trumpets or something, just surrounding it, because it was going to be a very obvious edit. And as it turned out, I decided to go with the critical alert alarm. So I do apologize if anyone was frightened by that and thought that the whole world was caving in. But I think it was just a message there as well that our co-hosts need to make sure, if they want to mention people, to put it in their notes and to write some notes. So,
and I appreciate you putting it in, Tony. Thank you. And I do want to shout out to Brian. So thank you.
So, Brian, I hope you enjoyed that very special mention, because hopefully no one will ever get that treatment again.
And just speaking about call-outs, because I saw a regular listener of the podcast yesterday at the Run Club, Meg. Meg couldn't believe that I called her out for when she wished that Brett Robinson won over Andy. She goes, I can't believe you called me out on the podcast. Meg, I've just done it again. I've called you out. So hopefully it will give you a laugh.
And not one mention of anyone coming up and saying how many shirt changes I had last week either, with all the different coloured shirts I wore.
That confused the crap out of me. And I'm just like, what's he doing now? Thanks. So that's it. So it's that time of the week where we talk about the news. Tim, what's been happening around the world this week?
Thanks, Lucia. The first bit of news is around the Tokyo Marathon, where they have recently announced that they are extending their cap of runners from 38,000 runners that they had in the event last year to 39,000 runners in 2026. So this is largely in response to the huge increase and surge of new runners running around the world. And what they have said is that 38,500 of those 39,000 spots will be allocated to the marathon participants, and 500 spots will be allocated to the 10.7 kilometer race, which is the race within the race. Tokyo is unique in that it actually has two races in the same race, the marathon and the 10.7. I think it's always had 500 spots. I think when we did it a number of years ago, it had 500 spots then. I don't think that number's changed. So for the marathoners out there, it's good that it's given a few extra spots to the marathoners. But like all other major marathons, it relies on a lottery system for entry. Generally, they get more than 300,000 runners to get less than about 10% of the total spots available. So as we always say, your best option if you want to be guaranteed entry into some of these events is to go through a travel organizer, a travel company like Travelling Fit. But yeah, guys, that's good news for everyone out there, an extra bit of space. And maybe they're trying to also just stay in front of Sydney as far as their numbers go as well. I don't know. But yeah, we'll wait and see on that one. Also over the last week or so, Faith Kipong, who is the world record holder in the women's mile and 1,500 metre race, has, as we know, a week or two ago, she tried to break the 4-minute mile barrier. I think from memory, she ran around about 4 minutes and 6 seconds. So she was a little bit off, but she still set a very fast time on the day. She has come back saying, yep, there was some mistakes there. There's some lessons to be learnt, and she's very keen to go and do it again and try and have a second crack. She's drawing on Eliud Kipchoge's example, where Eliud didn't break the 2-hour barrier on his first attempt, which was around Monza. He actually did it on his second attempt when he was able to do it in Vienna. So she's relying on that. She thinks there's more in the tank. And the first race reminded her that she has to dare to chase what she dreams of, but she's still very proud of herself. So guys, I know she's the GOAT over the women's mile distance. And if anyone out there was ever going to come close to breaking the 4-minute mile in the female division, it would have to be her. But with 6 seconds from what her effort was the other day, which was a world-class time, it's a fair effort. 6 seconds over a mile, I would argue.
Yeah, there's a couple of things to look at with this one, and all credit to Faith for having a crack at it. But a couple of interesting things. She broke the 1,500-meter world record, I think, or just a week later or something. It now stands at 3:48 instead of 3:49. So that was interesting. And I was listening to the running channel. Andy was talking that to actually achieve the 4-minute mile, she would have to run the 1,500 at around a 3:43. So there's still 5 seconds just in the, as you were saying, 5 or 6 seconds. But I think Nike also, and I get this whole thing with paces and wind resistance and whatnot. But for those that have seen the race, it actually looked like some of the paces really, they lost formation, they lost shape. They were, I don't know, it was really hard to explain. And also the way it was actually like if for those people into supercars or NASCAR, it's a rolling start for some motor races, and it was a rolling start for Faith. I mean, the timing actually started 9 meters after she started running. So it was like a rolling start, which is just weird. So I don't know if Nike actually helped her as much as in the long run. But at the end of the day, a week later, she's obviously done the work because she broke the 1,500-meter world record. So it'd be good to see it go. But as you're saying, it's a long way. It's a long way.
Yeah, very much so. But I think what it does is it makes others like Jessica Hull, who's the silver medalist, the Australian silver medalist in Paris last year. It helps them along as well. And I think longer term, it will be better for the sport, like what we saw with Kipchoge when he broke the 2-hour barrier. All of a sudden, we've seen Kelvin Kipton, we've seen Sarway come into the world, we've seen a number of other elite marathoners just come out of nowhere who have adopted the training programs and taken the technology and done something with it. And I would like to think that Faith's putting all this work in. She is at the back end of a career, but for the younger runners out there, it may help them push towards that 4-minute mile eventually anyway.
Yeah, another thing I found really, really interesting, and a shout out to Jess Hull. She came third in the race where Faith broke the 1,500-meter world record. So, and that was her first fastest run of the year. Andy, once again from the running channel, was talking about in terms of achievement. If Faith was to have done this would have been the greatest athletic achievement of all time. And when he analyzes Kipchoge's sub-2 attempts, he had to improve, don't quote me on these numbers, but it was about 1.5% for him to actually get under 2 hours. For Faith to achieve the sub-minute, it's like a 3.5% improvement. So it's twice what Kipchoge had to improve to get under it. And that's why Andy was saying quite openly that it would be the greatest achievement in athletics history. So I hope she gets it because it'd be great to see.
Yeah, 100%. All right, and the last bit of news I've got tonight is on the Cape Town Marathon, which we all know is looking towards becoming the 8th major. It's already in anticipation of becoming the 8th major. It has announced that next year's race will be moved from October till May next year to fill in that gap between, what's the last one? London. Yeah, London, yep. To fill in the gap between London and Sydney. So this year's event, which is held in October, has been announced as a sellout now. So it's been held on the 18th and 19th of October. It's the 3rd sellout in a row, and they've sold 24,000 spaces or entries into this year's marathon event. So it's definitely pointing towards Cape Town being awarded the coveted 8-star. I would have thought that would be one of the last things that they needed to do was keep showing that they're going to keep been a popular event, and hopefully, fingers crossed, they get all their entries and everything sorted, and they get everything goes right on the day for them. And we hear probably in New York a few weeks later that they then are awarded the 8 star for May next year, which would be awesome. I hope they get it, but you won't be seeing Team Ellis there next year. We might be there in 27 or 28, but probably not next year. We've got enough on next year already. But what about you guys? What are your thoughts?
I actually saw that Sarah Cotrona, who's a previous guest on the podcast, actually is giving up Chicago this year and running Cape Town. So it'd be, once she's done that, it might be a good opportunity to have a chat about with someone who's run Cape Town. But and I think a social media post was a little bit cheeky, suggesting that they need the good luck to make sure they get across the line like she ran Sydney last year and now. So I find that interesting. I wouldn't have thought that Cape Town was high up on the list of people, but well done, Sarah. Get out there and run it and come back and tell us all about it.
Yeah, it's not high on my list either. I would preference doing Shanghai over Cape Town. One of the reasons why I want to do Shanghai, and when I say you guys won't be surprised, I may have mentioned it previously, Shanghai Disney is the only Disney I haven't done. So hence why I want to do Shanghai.
I really, really want to do Cape Town. I've been to Cape Town before. It's an absolutely stunningly beautiful city. The reputation that it has is probably not quite as justified as what you think it should be. Yes, you have to be careful, but it is an absolutely wonderful town. And I think you will find that it's so scenic. And the marathon, I think it would be really, really nice. So I'm actually really keen to do that one.
Awesome. Well,
thanks. That's the news this week, Lucia.
Excellent. Thanks, Tim. So now it's time for us to share our experiences of maintaining running rituals whilst we're away, whether it's traveling for work or pleasure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick things off, ask the questions, and then get you guys to answer. I'll butt in if there's anything which hasn't been mentioned. So first question: what's your experiences running and traveling either for work or pleasure? Is it something you've done a lot of? Now, I'm going to leave Tim till last because I know he has. Tara, I'll start with you.
Oh, look, I don't travel for work, so I'm not in the same level as what you guys are. But I have done a lot of traveling, obviously, for running. Obviously my vacations are based around running, so yes, I've done a lot of it, and I'm pretty well on spot now with what I need to do. I've actually got a packing list that's just designed for running vacations to make sure I do not forget those essentials like your, spy belt or your gels or, body glide, things like that.
Awesome. Tony?
I don't do a lot of traveling for work. I used to, but when I used to travel, I wasn't really a runner. So the traveling we do is when we travel together for, going on a running trip. So we travel to go run a marathon. So of course we're going to have some running gear in there. But so most of ours is about just running. So, and an example of that would be our upcoming trip to Amsterdam. So I think we're landing very close to the marathon, 2 days in Amsterdam, run the marathon, then we've got 3 weeks of travel. So we'll have some running gear, but we're there for pleasure more so. Once we've done the marathon, we'll be there for pleasure. So we'll probably come back 2 or 3 kilograms heavier, but the running gear will be in the bag just in case.
Excellent. So Tim, it sounds like you're the one out of all of us that will have the most insight to share on this topic.
Yeah, I'm expert level. I've traveled an awful lot for work over the years. As you can tell, I'm living down the Gold Coast Monday to Friday currently, but prior to that, I used to jet set all around Australia, New Zealand, and Asia for work purposes. So yes, I understand this topic very, very clearly. And on top of that, when we do have our holidays, we do running, don't we, Tara? In between some of the races, we had 2 weeks last year or 3 weeks last year between Chicago and New York marathons, and we've done other running, obviously, around the world whenever we've travelled somewhere. We've done runs around Kyoto and Japan and Tokyo, and runs around where else? Berlin and London as well. So yeah, it's what we do.
Excellent. So next question, I'm actually going to change it a little bit from the run sheet. So Tim, I do apologise. When you pack running gear to go away with you, what's the secret? Do you pack it in your carry-on or your checked baggage, and why? We'll start with Tim first on this one. Oh, okay. We've lost Tim. We'll go to Tara then.
All right. So, yes, I will always pack running gear no matter where I'm going. So, even if I'm just going down to Tim's unit for the weekend rather than him coming back home to Brisbane, I will pack running gear. And that just allows me to have that freedom. If I do want to go for a run, I've got the opportunity to do it. If I'm flying somewhere, I prefer to have it on my baggage that I'm carrying on the plane, or I will wear my shoes, because those shoes I can't replace because they have got custom-made orthotics in there as well. So I'm a bit fussy with my shoes. They will always be on my person at all times. But yes, I always have running gear wherever I go. Even in my car, I have stuff that I can go for a run if I'm somewhere that looks good. So yeah.
Awesome. And Tim?
Yeah, I carry it with me. Generally, I'll pack it away, a bit like Tara. If there's orthotics in my shoes, I'll keep them on carry-on. But yeah, always stuff some running clothes in, even if it's just in the backpack that I'm carrying. If I'm doing an overnighter somewhere, I'll find a way to be able to put the shoes and some running gear in there.
Awesome. Tony?
Yeah, I carry on, absolutely. If we're running for a race, the race gear goes in there, what I can carry on. I'll normally have 2 pairs of shoes. One will be race day shoes, and another pair of my runners will be what I wear on a day-to-day basis. But they're also good enough for running in case I lost my race day shoes. So I've always do a little bit of a coverage there. So, but yeah, carry on for sure.
I think for me, the only time I put it in my checked luggage is if I'm racing domestically, because I always arrive to the city where I'll be racing a few days prior. So I figure if my bag gets lost, there's always a flight Sydney, like Sydney, Melbourne, like plenty of flights, even the same Sydney Goldie. So if I'm traveling domestically, it goes in the checked baggage, but internationally, all my race gear, my nutrition, my massage gun, which I actually got pulled aside at Sydney Airport when I was flying to Goldie because my bag got checked. I'm like, I wonder what it could be. Yeah, so internationally, I carry everything on board with me just to play it safe. And then when I said to her, I'm like, could it be the massage gun? I'm like, I open it. She goes, yeah, that's it. Okay, see, I'm like, okay, happy days. But surprisingly, I wasn't pulled up about my drink powder stuff. I thought if anything, I'd be pulled up on those. Bizarre. Now, running in new locations, it can create everlasting memories. What are some of your favourite memories of runs you've done whilst travelling? Tony, I'll start with you on this one.
Some of the best runs that we've had, like running Chicago. We were there for probably just over a week prior to the race, and being able to run along the waterfront at Lake Michigan was amazing, and running along the Chicago River, I think it's called, was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. I've certainly also enjoyed running around the little town of Leek in the UK when we've been over there for from other things. So we visited there last May for a wedding in the family, and it was cool just being able to run around like a real little country town in England, and just to see, the canals and run along the canals. It was everything that we actually really, really enjoyed. So they're the two main memories I would have of outside of the major runs that we've done. They're just those normal everyday runs that are just something special because they're somewhere new.
Awesome. Tara?
Yeah, I've actually got two that come to mind. One of them, I went back to New Zealand in August last year, and it was freezing cold, like it was -6 at the time. And I went with my brothers because we actually went to say goodbye to my grandmother. She was in palliative care and passing away. So it was early in the morning. My brothers were still asleep, and it was a frosty morning. And the sun doesn't get up till about 8 o'clock in the morning where I grew up. And that's like just breaking dawn type thing. And I went for a run along the river, along what's called the Clutha River in Alexandra, and just watching the steam, because the water was warmer than the outside temperature, the steam coming off the river and the flow, and just that morning waking up, just peaceful, quiet, just listening to the birds. And in the countryside, there's nobody around apart from people walking their dogs perhaps. And my other one that I really enjoyed was we went for a run early morning in Vegas. Now, anyone who has been to Vegas, wake up early and go for a run or go for a walk before anybody else is around. It is a completely different town. It is amazing. And it's actually clean because they've cleaned the streets, and it's just a whole different vibe, whole different feel. And you feel like you're not in Vegas. It feels like it's almost a movie set.
Yeah, I was going to say Vegas as well. But Tim, over to you.
I was just going to say the smell of pot wasn't as strong early in the morning either. I have many memories of running around the world, but probably some of the best ones. I used to do a lot of travel to Sydney and base myself at North Sydney. And I would get up in the mornings before I'd start work, run over the Harbour Bridge, down into Circular Quay, round the Opera House, and then back up through the rocks, up the stairs to the Harbour Bridge, and then over the Harbour Bridge and back to North Sydney. And I used to love that run, especially as the sun was coming up. I'd time it so that the sun was coming up as I was running over the bridge, so that you look down towards the heads and you could see the sun coming up. Now, I know that's just a normal run for you, Lachie, but for somebody outside, it's probably the best bit of Sydney and the only bit of Sydney that I actually like. The rest of it I'm not that fussed on. But that's one memory. I've got memories of running in Singapore. I stayed at Clark Quay, which is just outside of Marina Keys there, Marina Bay, and running down around the canals down into Marina Bay. And then running the Formula One racetrack or parts of it, including Pitt Straight in Singapore was pretty awesome. I've got memories of running in remote outback locations of Australia. One of the locations was a little town called, what was it called now? It's just north of Katherine, which is just south of Darwin, Pine Creek. And it was 39 degrees Celsius. I'd finished work for the day, and it's like, I've got to get my run in. I've got to stick to the program. I've got to get my 10Ks in. And I literally ran every street in this small little town and came up to this lookout over this beautiful gorge with all this water in it, and it was just spectacular. And then coming back down into the city, into the township itself. So, yeah, happy memories. Running around Wellington when I used to go over there for work. And running along the waterfront in Wellington, running around Haigsley Park in Christchurch, running around the Tan and Albert Park in Victoria, in Melbourne when I've been down there for business in the past, even running along in Perth and running along the Swan River in the city there. It's just spectacular. So you can do it if you're doing it for work, which is what I've done a lot of it. It's just got to make the time and find the time to make it happen.
You guys have said a lot of the ones in which I was going to say, but I think one of the ones that fascinates me is Albert Park in Melbourne. So I did it on a recent trip to Melbourne, and one of my favourite parts is when you come down into the pit, well, sorry,
Pit lane.
you come into pit lane and you think to yourself, it's just a building, and how they transform that area for the F1 fascinates me every time I run around there. It's just fascinating. So yeah, I love doing that. And running past Buckingham Palace in London, it doesn't get old, because you stand in the front and you kind of look, you're like, it really doesn't look that big. Like, it's massive inside, but looking at it from the outside, like, you think, I thought it'd be bigger than that. So it's, yeah, I love running. Love running internationally, like doing a quick run. But Vegas is up there as probably one of my favorites, because, Tara, as you said, running in Vegas during the day is an absolute hoot, because you can be, like, in the space of a K, you can be in New York and you can be in Paris. It's just, Vegas is it's a very fun place to run. Now, I don't know if we're going to have much knowledge or much experience on this next one, so we'll try. Have you guys done park runs whilst traveling? Is park run adventurism or park run tourism, is it a real thing? I'm going to start off with Tony first for this one.
My answer is really easy, Lucia, but it gets you on to the two that we'll talk about it the most. The answer would be no. I've never done a park run whilst traveling. And is park run tourism and adventurism a real thing? I do believe it is, and a lot of people partake in it, but I don't.
I think we'll hand it on to the two that may know a bit about this. So we'll go Tara first.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, as everyone knows, we're parkrun nuts. We have actually changed flights to ensure that we can get a parkrun in on a country. We've hired cars that, if a parkrun is too far away or not able to be used as transport. That doesn't make any sense. If we can't get public transport to somewhere, we will hire a car to get to parkrun. Yes, definitely. We go out of our way to make sure we can find a parkrun wherever we go. It disappoints us when we go somewhere, say, for example, Sydney. They've got their 5K on the Saturday and the marathon's on the Sunday. So we can't obviously do parkrun because we want to do the 5K. So we will actually be staying back an extra week to make sure that we get a Sydney parkrun in, just to do that. So yes, this parkrun tourism thing can cost a lot of money, just as much as what the international races can.
Now, Tara, sorry, don't mean to interrupt you, but you mentioned about how you'll hire cars if there's no public transport. Can you just talk our listeners through, when we did London in 22, there was a train strike that weekend. What lengths did you guys have to go to get to Bushy Parkrun? Because I remember we had Travis with a group I was with, and he was saying what they had to do, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing all of that before, like a day before the marathon. So can you just expand on that and tell our listeners what you guys went through that day, just to show your enthusiasm for parkrun?
So I think we should hand that one over to Tim, because Tim is our parkrun planner and he understood the train system and the strike way better than me. So Tim, let's go with you.
Yeah, so we had to catch, what's the main central Waterloo station? We had to catch a train from Waterloo station to somewhere else, which was like an express train. It wasn't a tube train. And then from there we had to catch another train that was running only on an hourly schedule from there to another location, get off there and literally walk 100 meters down the road to find the right bus stop, to wait for the bus, to then catch the bus probably 20 stops, to then get off the bus and then walk probably 1.5 miles to be able to then get to Bushy.
But that's okay. About 3 hours to get to Bushy Parkrun that morning.
Yeah, but we did.
He was trying to explain it to me on the Friday what they were going to do, and because he had a group of people there that were doing it with him, and he was explaining everything, and I just looked at Sharon and said, "There's no effing way we are doing that at all." And I'm still amazed. Like, he remembers the level of detail that they went to. The man's he's a computer. He's a human computer, this guy. To map that out and understand exactly what they had to do to get and do a park run. Now, in hindsight, I would have liked to have run Bushy now that I know a
100%
little bit
with you.
more around park run. But I still don't think I would have wanted to have run it. And I still don't know if I want to run it enough now to have done what Tim and them had to do. And maybe there's going to be a chance for me to run Bushy on the way back home from Amsterdam. So we'll see how we go.
It was a good tour. Everyone, and we bumped into somebody down the Gold Coast who still remembered that tour as well. And they all had a lot of fun. There was no certainty when we were catching those trains and that the bus would turn up on time. There was no certainty, but it all worked and we all got there. And it was the same in Japan, Lucia, when we went to Shingashikawa Park Run. We caught the train and we
that was fun.
Yep. Yeah, I make it fun when we travel.
They've actually been known on our tours as Tim's Terrible Tours. So, and they're not terrible. It's just that somebody came up with that nickname of Tim's Terrible Tours, and anyone that goes traveling with us expects Tim to put on a park run now. So, yeah.
But he always gets a following though, because I remember in Tokyo there was a good group of us that went.
Probably about 40, I reckon.
Yeah. And Jen Kellett, I think she's been on three of them, twice in Japan, and maybe she wasn't. She was at Bushy, but with a different group. But yeah, we've had numerous people do them with us, but they're always good fun. But the tourism bit is a real thing. I would only be guessing, but around the world, every Saturday morning there would be probably $50 million to $100 million Australian spent on tourism. By the time you take into account all the people around the world who will catch flights or who will hire cars, who will spend a night at a hotel, who will buy a breakfast or a cup of coffee afterwards. When you think of what Parkrun does to the local economies that it's in, it's phenomenal.
You know, it is like what it's achieved is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, following on from that, what's the biggest challenge you find trying to fit running into your traveling schedule? Tara?
I guess with that, you have to really plan out your trip beforehand. You have to really stick to that plan and ensure that if you say you're going to run on, if you're in a training period especially, you have to make sure that you stick to that. So if your plan says that you have to do 12 Ks on a Tuesday and 14 Ks on the Thursday, you have to make sure that you've got that time available on your trip. You also have to make sure that you're eating the correct foods and you've got time to recover as well. So it is a challenge, but you just need to pre-plan before you leave to make sure that everything's in place and to make sure you've got the right equipment or gear that you need as well.
Awesome. Tim?
The biggest challenge for me is always fatigue. If I'm traveling for work, I'm generally tired. I'm catching flights early in the morning. I'm getting home late at night. Trying to fit in training in amongst that is always problematic. If you're traveling for pleasure, the worst bit is the mental bit about I've got to get up when I could be just lying in bed and having a lie in and having a relax. So it is mainly mental, but the fatigue is the big thing.
Tony?
Yeah, probably the only time we've travelled when we were on an active training plan was the wedding that I referred to in the UK. So, and we just mapped it out that we were going to run 3 mornings and which mornings they were, and we mapped out the route while we were already here in Australia. So we knew, so we had that on the Google Maps, I think it might have been. So outside of that, we've never really travelled when we were actively training. We travelled, obviously we do a little bit of traveling to get to marathons, but the training's been done. So, and usually you might do a shakeout run a day or two before, and then you enjoy yourself after has been sort of our philosophy. So, so the only time we traveled with a training plan, we just mapped it out before we went, knew what days we were going to run, and we knew the route we were going to take, and that's what we did.
Which kind of leads me on to another question. How do you plan your running routes in new places to avoid becoming lost? Because I know one thing I do is, and I did this in Portland. It was the first time I was been to Portland, and I'd heard some very sketchy stories about Portland. So I had my landmarks. I'm like, okay, I went past that hotel and then I went down the river, and I'm like, as long as I get back to that hotel, I knew where I had to go from there. So I think for me, if it's in a city I don't know, it's about finding 2 or 3 landmarks and remembering those landmarks, and so that way I know to get back to my hotel. Tim, what about you?
I'm a stickler for planning, as Tara knows. I plan and plan and then plan again. And when it comes to training or running in different locations, or I know I'm going to be overseas or in a different state, I tend to use Google Maps or Google Earth. I use the street view so that I can actually look at the view beforehand and understand what the streets look like, so I can understand if they're good streets or sketchy streets, or if I should change the location. The other thing I tend to do is I'll look at Strava as well, and then you can get maps of your local areas on Strava as well, which you can use. And I'll just Google safe places to run in those cities as well, because, yeah, particularly some cities, and you nailed it there with Oregon. We haven't been to Oregon, but there have been other US cities we've been to where crime is quite high, a lot higher than what we're used to here in Australia. And, you can very easily, without knowing it, wander into an area that is not safe. And you just got to be mindful of it. So using things like Street View, looking at the actual images from the street, seeing what it looks like is good. I tend to stay on main roads too. I don't tend to go down a lot of back streets when I'm running in places I don't know.
Tony, yourself?
Everything that Tim just talked about, that's what I should do.
And Tara, just in case you want to add anything else.
I'm pretty much always with Tim. So whatever we do, Tim has already mapped out and he knows what's going on. I think the only time that we felt a bit dodgy was we ran from Memphis in Mississippi over across the river into Arkansas. Mississippi, the Memphis area is not exactly the safest area to be running in. So we were very cautious there. Tim had mapped out that route beforehand, like the route that we were taking, and it wasn't really dodgy that we went to. But when I was in New Zealand, I feel very comfortable just running wherever I want to run, especially in my hometown where I grew up. It's a very small hometown, so it doesn't matter if there's people around or not. I feel safe, whatever happens. But yeah, there's a lot of places in the world you just have to be cautious of where you are.
Excellent. So the next one, which you've kind of touched on a bit, Tim, but do you research running trails or even groups or even running races, events that you can incorporate in your runs? And also one thing I think sometimes that people don't necessarily think about is the different running etiquette that you should be aware of prior to running overseas. Because one thing that I remember when we did Dopey was, so I did run walk for Dopey, and you did that on, well, sorry, if you walked, you raised your hand on the right hand side, but yet here in Australia it's on the left hand side. So is that something that you guys are conscious about researching as well? Is the different running etiquettes?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So firstly, on the looking for groups to run with, I generally don't, but if I see other running groups, then I'll keep an eye out for them. So one group that I used to see quite regularly, I don't know if they still exist, but on Tuesday nights in Wellington, there used to be a run group there that would do a 5K time trial every Tuesday night, and they'd probably get about 300 or 200 to 300 runners there every Tuesday night after work, 5 o'clock. You run along the waterfront there. And I did a bit of research, but I would just go down and run it. and run part of that course with all those runners and talk to them as I was running through, which made it a bit fun. So you can look for those sort of things. You can look for run clubs and those sort of things online if you want to. As far as the etiquette goes, the rule I have is whenever I travel, whatever the side the cars travel on is generally the side you walk or run on the footpath. So if cars like here in Australia travel on the left-hand side, you run and walk on the left-hand side of the path. If you're in the US where cars are on the right-hand side, you run and walk on the right-hand side of the pavement. The only other bit of etiquette or rule that I've got is around spitting. I know certain countries and cultures, the Japanese being one, a lot of Asian countries, spitting is not something they like to see or happen on theirs. But then there's other Asian countries, Papua New Guinea, where I've been before, where spitting is a custom. It's a norm that they do. They spit out their betel nut juice everywhere. So not that I'd run in Papua New Guinea. By the way, it's a bit unsafe. I'd run on a treadmill, but not out on the roads. But it is one of those things you do need to understand the etiquette. And again, it's probably worth Googling in some areas if you're a bit unsure what the etiquette is. But generally, most people are forgiving. If you're running on the wrong side, they might yell out or tell you to get on the other side of the road. But it's the things like if you spit or if you're I don't know what might be some of the other etiquette. It might be drinking water while running or something like that. That might be something that might be problematic as well. But again, as usual, if you're taking gels or any food, take your rubbish with you. Don't dump it on the ground, no matter where you are. That's just good manners. That's not etiquette. So,
no, exactly.
One of those other things with the etiquette is like places let you buy. Don't be that female that runs in the bra and the short shorts. That's a very big no-no in places like that. So just be aware of your attire in some places as well.
And Tony?
Never researched customs, and the only time that I've ever looked at a running group where I was going is, once again, referring to that May holiday in England. I actually looked up to see if there was a 40 run club close by, because I thought that would have been a pretty cool experience. But no, they did not have one in League. So,
shame. Once when I was in Vegas, this was many years ago, a friend put me on to this company that does running tours in cities with a local guide. So I did one, and he took me to Old Vegas, and it was fascinating running down Fremont Street, and he took me to a yard in which they store all the old neon signs, and also outside an American porn store. Sorry, let me take a step back. When I say porn, I mean the PAWN, porn, not the other porn. And this is the one which they started a famous American TV show on. So it was really good seeing Vegas, old Vegas, that way. So I can definitely recommend doing that as well. So leads me on to another question, which sometimes when traveling can impact. Eating and finding foods that are high protein and full of carbs can be quite challenging. How do you maintain your diets, especially leading up to races? What tips do you have for our listeners to help them stay consistent with their foods whilst traveling? Because I know one area that I struggle with is I love going to the States, love going to America, but it's hard to eat healthy. So, Tony, I'll start with you.
To be honest, and once again, I'm a little bit lucky. Sharon's a little less lucky, so she's got to watch out for seafood and things that she's allergic to and can't eat. But really, I've never really had a drama. I've never stressed about it. It just goes. I just go with the flow when it comes to food. There's always enough where we've traveled. There's always enough Western style eateries for us to be able to at least get something that we're relatively familiar with. Probably the only place I did have a little bit of nervousness was about Japan prior to Tokyo, but that was sort of negated a little bit because we visited Tokyo 4 years earlier, so we sort of had an idea of what we could and what we couldn't eat. So in terms of food, I've never really had much of a drama, and I feel like in this episode, I haven't been able to add too much value because of the fact that I haven't done a park run overseas. I haven't, I've never had much drama with the food and whatnot. So, and I keep referring back to a 2-week or a 10-day stint in the UK. So I'm very grateful that my co-hosts, Tim and Tara, have had a lot more experience doing this. So.
And Team Ellis?
Yeah, look, I guess I'm a bit like Tony. I was a bit hesitant with Japan, but in all honesty, I actually learned that running on sushi and ramen is actually probably better for me than running on any other Western type food. So I am aware of what I eat when I am overseas. I am not going in to eat the seafood chowder with the creamy sauce the day before a marathon. I don't eat the hot chips. I do keep it simple, but after the marathon, I'll just eat whatever. As you can tell, you do not get this runner's physique without eating and trying nearly everything. So, yeah.
As I say, I run to eat.
Yeah.
Tim, yourself?
Well, for work purposes, I used to have quite senior roles. So I'd rock up. I'd fly out of Brisbane at 5 o'clock in the morning, land in Sydney at 6, go into a series of workshops and meetings during the day, be fed, little sausage rolls and meat pies for morning tea, have copious amounts of those little triangle sandwiches. I don't know what it is about triangle sandwiches, but 4 triangles equals 1 sandwich, which is enough for me any other lunch. But when they're in little triangle format, I'll have probably 3 sandwiches worth. And then, the afternoon will be, the sticky buns or the sweet treats that come out in the afternoon. And then you'll go out for a few beers and a steak and well, why not? I'll have the sticky date pudding for dessert to finish it off with. And you feel yuck when you get to bed. So you feel like you need to have a run the next morning. And so having those runs was actually a good way of getting out of that habit of eating all that bad food, or at least justifying to myself eating that bad food's not a bad thing. The other important thing, I guess, with food and travel is if you do it regularly like I used to and you had lounge membership, you'd wake up in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, get into the car, drive to the airport, get into the lounge, stuff down as much food as you can in the lounge before you get on the plane. Get on the plane, have a second breakfast when you get into the plane, because they always give you a nice breakfast on the plane. And then all of a sudden you get to your destination and it's 7 o'clock in the morning, you've already had 2 breakfasts and you're bloated. And then all of a sudden, as I said, then they keep giving you more and more food during the day at those things. So the running bit is important to do. It's important not only just for your health and well-being, but for your mental health as well. Being locked up inside all day, I used to find it was a great way of releasing stress, getting my head clear for the start of the second day of all that same shit again. And before then, generally jumping on a plane at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock that night and landing back in Brisbane at 10 o'clock to snuggle into bed at 11 o'clock with Tara and to get up again the next day and fly somewhere else to do it all over again. So, it is important to watch your food when you are traveling. It's really important to eat the right foods, to make the right healthy options. Don't do the 2 breakfasts. Don't eat the meat pies and the sausage rolls. Or maybe have 1 of each or something, but not 3 or 4 of those. I don't know. Again, the little sausage rolls, they get me every time. I can eat one sausage roll and it'll be fine, but I can have about 6 or 7 of those little sausage rolls, which will equate to 2 or 3 sausage rolls by the end of the morning tea. It's just crazy how portion size can kill you when you're traveling.
Now, guys, I'm just conscious of time. So it's been a really good chat, and I hope many of our listeners are inspired to throw their running gear into their bags for the next trip away. Now, guys, it's that time of the week which I know people look forward to when I do it. I don't know how much people look forward to when Tim does it, but it's that time of the week for the tip from Tim. So, Tim, what's your tip for the week?
Thanks, Lucia. My tip this week is that running in locations is fantastic. It creates new and everlasting memories. It creates an opportunity to go and explore areas where you may never have gone before or never thought to have gone before. And as I said earlier, some of the locations I've been to have been not the nice, glamorous locations, but some of them are rural little towns in the middle of nowhere. and you can do a couple of laps of the town, and it just for whatever reason those are the best runs. So, but whatever you do, make sure you do your research beforehand. As we said, go onto Google Earth, Google Maps, get the street view out. Make sure that you are choosing safe locations to go and run. If you're still unsure, ask the concierge in the hotel, or ask the locals, or the person who owns the motel, wherever you're staying, where it is safe to run and where it's not safe to run. Check to make sure it's right. Don't go out for a run at 5 o'clock in the morning if it's pitch black and you're in your town that you're not used to running in. Wait a couple of hours, get the daylight up, and then go for a run as well. And as we've said and we've talked about tonight, parkrun is a great way to go out and explore new locations, run in a different location, meet new local people, make new friends, and again, create everlasting memories. So definitely go out there, throw your running shoes in whenever you're traveling somewhere. I know of people that have actually run around cruise ships and done, a half marathon around the top deck of a cruise ship. So wherever you are, throw the shoes in and give it a crack. That's my tip.
Excellent. Now, unfortunately, this episode is about to end, but just before we do that, Tony, what's on for next week?
Before we talk about next week, let's just, I just want to acknowledge we've had more comments in the last week through our social media and especially on our YouTube channel. So if you aren't following us on our YouTube channel, please do. But it's great to see those comments, and we like to acknowledge them. So Tammy T on Instagram, thank you very much. Glad you loved the episode, and would have loved to have heard from Patrick as a guest, and I believe that could be a work in progress. Can't guarantee it, but I believe that Team Ellis have already raised the question, and there may be some behind the scenes maneuvering or influencing that may make that happen.
It's not cool to be on Mum and Dad's podcast when you're 19.
So in other words, at the moment, it's a no. So, but I've got no doubt that they can influence. And Sean Lyons had a very well thought out commentary around the episode, especially in relation to things that happen on the course. And but that instigated some chat in our group chat as well, as we sort of mold some of the questions that Sean's asked. And we think it's probably something that we need to dive into at a greater depth in another episode. So, Sean, thanks very much for your comments. And you will see us probably talk through and share some of our ideas and thoughts. And as I said, it really did open up some conversation in our group chat. Lucia, as for what's going to happen for next week, we're sharing race day mistakes. Yes, we make them all. And we'll be talking about all the things that we've stuffed up well, maybe not all the things, but some of the things, like wearing new shoes or things on our race day, not fueling right, not drinking right, not hydrating right, to undertraining. I think we've heard a little bit about that just recently, or just going out way too fast. All those little mistakes are going to be part of our episode, as well as many more. So if you've got a mistake that you've made during a race, why don't you share it in any of our social media channels in comments? We'd love to hear from them. So we'll share our mistakes so you don't have to make them, but I'll guarantee you will still make them. So as we keep saying, we're the only podcast with 4 6-star hosts, and by the time we get through Sydney, we'll be the only podcast with 4 7-star hosts. So we might just know a little thing or two about making the odd mistake. So as usual, it's going to be a great episode. Don't miss it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tony. Unfortunately, that's it for this week's show, guys. So unfortunately, it is time to wrap up. It's been fun catching up with you guys again, especially after seeing you guys last week in person. And hopefully we've inspired some of our listeners to get out there and do some running when they're on their next break somewhere. We love making this podcast for you, our listeners. Let us know what you think. Message us on Instagram, Facebook, or email us at happyrunning@flyingrunner.com. If you have any running tips, we'd love to hear from them, or anything you'd like us to cover in a future episode, please let us know. And you can watch this episode on YouTube and listen to it on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and all major platforms. Every step counts. Keep running, and we'll see you next time on the Flying Runner podcast. Happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running.